everyone. My name is Rochelle Innocent and I'm the founder and CEO of Project Purpose. Welcome to our channel. Our community is focused on fostering the intellectual and character development in children. We do this through our parent-child workshops that are focused on 4 themes: autonomy, self-efficacy, compassion, and self-concept, in order to cultivate grit, perseverance, and resilience in each child. And we are so thrilled to be offering one of the first of its kind digital, virtual, and continuous learning environments, enabling parents and children to connect from all around the world. At Project Purpose, our overarching mandate is to renew and rebuild family, community, and relationships. Our different social media platforms provide us with an opportunity to have discussions and to create space for all topics that relate to family, community, and relationships with ourselves as well as with others, with a primary focus on mental health and education. More precisely, the ways that the institutions of mental health and education play a role and have played a role in our societies at large. These discussions and debates provide us with an opportunity to think critically about what needs to change within these structures for us to live up to our bold slogan: support, protect, and empower each child through youth-focused development, better known as leadership in juvenescence. We recognize that in valuing our children's leadership potential, this also translates as recreating and co-creating environments, both socially and politically, that will enable our children to thrive. For those of you who are particularly keen on the topic, we also write thought pieces every other Sunday. We actually just dropped a thought piece this past Sunday, so definitely be sure to meander over to the website and check out our online content. Now, if it is a case that you are looking for a listening alternative, well, we're available wherever podcasts are playing, and we provided you with access to a few links down below. Now, as is the convention, be sure to subscribe, hit that post notification bell so that you are aware of every time we post. And of course, if you like these conversations and you want to keep them going, like, comment, and share this segment. Let's get into it. Allô les meufs et les mecs. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another segment here on Project Purpose. For those of you who are new, we cover topics that relate to mental health, mental wellness, and education on a week-by-week basis. And today's topic of discussion is mental wellness. On the conversation around mental wellness this week, I'm going to be talking about helplessness, how we can manage our experience of helplessness when we're dealing with situations that seem to be way above our head and beyond our realm of control. And so I wanted to keep all the conversations that we've had in alignment with my opening up about a month ago now about my stalking experience. And I want to make sure to keep that theme until I get any updates. I haven't received any updates as yet, but there's so many topics that I can cover on the subject of stalking, because stalking creates just so many different visceral responses. And one of the biggest one that I have developed a really close relationship with in a positive way is helplessness, because when you're being stalked, you're very helpless about what's happening around you, so you really need to start to focus on what's happening within you to be able to govern yourself accordingly and to keep yourself safe and to keep focusing on you, on living your best life, on accomplishing your goals, accomplishing the things that you have in mind, and not allow yourself to be consumed by a lot of the fear, anxiety, and chaos that being stalked creates. And so where this is a bit of a silver lining, I've had the opportunity to really cultivate a certain degree of self-mastery around helplessness, because I felt it for such a long extended period of time. And before, whenever it was that I felt helpless, because I am someone who is biased towards action, I would do something, anything, to feel less helpless. I felt like helplessness was a very crippling and very suffocating experience, and helplessness can feel very different for each of us. All of us have a relationship with helplessness, varying degrees of health and that relationship that we have with helplessness, but I don't think that my relationship with helplessness was necessarily healthy, but it was one of those high functioning muscles where people couldn't necessarily tell that I was operating from a place of anxiety, from a place of fear, and a place of worry, because I would do something to feel less helpless. And that something could feel and seem very structured, very planned, very methodical, but it is still a gut and emotional reaction to me not wanting to feel this sense of helplessness. And so I have learned different skills and different tools that I think are more adaptive by way of managing my sense of helplessness, and I would like to share those with you. So I think I'm going to share 3 in this video, And so the first one is stillness. And for those of you who are biased towards action, where if you feel helpless, you just need to do something, you need to stay busy, I've learned that one of the healthiest ways for me to manage my sense of helplessness is to practice stillness. And a lot of the times the answers will come if you just give yourself a little bit of time and be patient. And so one of the compounding effects to me having such a visceral response to helplessness is the fact that I'm not a very patient person, not naturally anyway. And so I've mentioned in a few videos that I'm fairly high strung, and I've learned that a lot of why I feel like I need to move and do something when I feel helpless is just me exercising my impatience. It's not me exercising an action plan that is for my best interest. It's just me needing to do something to feel like there's momentum, to feel like there's movement, because my sense of impatience requires that. And so to counter that, I've learned to practice stillness, so to give myself an opportunity to meditate, to be in the present. And that meant really ramping up on my yoga. And I love yoga. I have loved yoga my whole adult life. I started yoga when I was 19 years old, and I've been doing yoga ever since, but I've been moving to different styles of yoga as I've grown and as I've matured and as I've been focusing a little bit more on my healing journey. And then the last 4 to 5 years, it's really been yin yoga. I've really been very concentrated on yin yoga, and I think that it's my niche. I think that while I love vinyasa, while I love ashtanga yoga, I think that with the things that I have been enduring and that I've dealt with, the emotional release, the somatic therapy that I get from yin yoga has been unparalleled. Anything else that I've done to kind of support my healing journey, but part of why this practice is so important and so integral and part of my lifestyle is because it enables me to practice stillness, which counters the reflex of needing to do something, of those knee-jerk run reactions. And so I like to call my response to helplessness a lot of knee-jerk run reactions, where it sounds like I have a plan in place, but really I am figuring out what my exit strategy is because I don't like this feeling of helplessness. And what I've learned with yin yoga especially is to practice stillness, so to sit in that space, to give myself space to counter the sense of helplessness and realize that even if I feel helpless, it doesn't mean that I am helpless. I'm just kind of focusing on the wrong things. And so stillness, giving yourself space to allow that sense of helplessness to wash over you, and to then think about, okay, well, this helplessness stems from my focus being on what I can't control. Let me shift that focus to what I can control. And that's the second tip that I have, is the refocus and the reframing of the situation, so that you're focusing on yourself, on your reactions to the situations. And a lot of the times when it is the case that we're dealing with something that is beyond us, we're dealing with the actions, behaviors, intentions of other people. The only thing that we can really govern in those situations are our reactions to them. Are we reacting in a way that is in alignment with our highest selves, or are we reacting in a way that serves us in the long run, in the mid run, and in the short term as well? And so I've had to really dial deep into how I react to situations that make me feel overwhelmed, that make me feel helpless, that make me feel useless, and figure out strategies that serve me, that help me rather than hurt me. And a lot of that is giving myself the space to think about can-dos. And a lot of us are so fixed and so stuck in this muscle and this habit of what we can't do when we feel helpless, because it kind of begins this spiraling snowball effect of thoughts that kind of pack on all of the reasons why you should feel helpless. I like to counter every reason that comes up in my brain as to why I should feel helpless. I counter it with, well, what can I do? What can I do in this situation? How can I help myself? And I've come up with a three-pronged approach, where the first thing that I do when I feel helpless and I want to reframe is I focus on the gap analysis. If there is this one thing that I can't do, I figure out, well, why can't I do that? And I kind of list out the reasons why. Then I think to myself, well, what could build a bridge between the things that are missing and the things that I would need to be able to maybe build more traction in that area. So the gap analysis is very helpful. It helps ground me and helps me feel like I have a plan, and it helps me feel like, okay, well, I can plan this out. I don't need to react with urgency. I don't need to act on this knee-jerk run reaction. I can do something that is beneficial and that is healthy, which is my reaction. My reaction to the situation is planning, is thinking, and being methodical about the way that I approach it. And so the second area that I like to think about, and it comes from this gap analysis, is a skills requirement assessment. And when I do a skills requirement, when I recognize, okay, well, these are the specific skills that I have identified in my gap analysis, I counter that with, is this a skill that I can acquire, or is this a skill that I need to develop? And not every skill that we recognize is missing is something that we need to go ahead and build on our own. Sometimes you need to build a team, and I've learned so much, especially in this experience, that we cannot do it all on our own. Sometimes there are different skill sets that we need to acquire and not develop. But third, if it is the case that we do need to develop those skills, then that's also a reaction that's going to be helpful to us, because if we need that skill in this situation, chances are we're going to need that skill in future situations as well. So part of what I like about reframing this sense of helplessness into can-dos is that I am really very pragmatic and tactical about the action areas that are required. And sometimes it takes me a little bit to stop spiraling, to stop being in my emotions, and to get cerebral. But I find that if I can manage my emotions and meet them with where I am cerebrally, I calm down and I actually assuage and comfort myself rather than react on the emotions in an unhealthy way, which is my knee-jerk run responses to situations that make me feel helpless. So hopefully that's helpful to you. Doing a gap analysis, it gives you a sense of what skills are required, and then from that point you can decide if, well, for these skills that are required, do I acquire these skills or do I develop them personally? And if you do decide that you want to develop them personally, then build out a development plan, and then that gives you a sense of where the control lies. And when you have that sense, you feel less helpless. Which leads me to my third point, and that's really being very intentional about how you treat limiting thoughts. And I think that a lot of the times we internalize these limiting thoughts, and helplessness is a huge driver of a lot of limiting thoughts. And what happens when you operate from a place of helplessness is you act with limited action, right? When you feel helpless, you give yourself this very small box from within to play in. But when you start to reframe this sense of helplessness into can-do, you start to think about the options that are not in front of you, because sometimes the situation seems to present with some obvious trajectories that you can take forward, but there's always the unspoken trajectory, and often that's the trajectory that you figure out when you practice stillness, when you give yourself some space in that sense of helplessness to think about, well, what can I do in this situation? And from that point, you deconstruct the limiting belief that's creating a sense of limited action. And so those are some of the things that I do to help myself stay focused, to stay grounded, and to stay clear on the path ahead of me. And that has kept me at least a couple steps ahead in this stalking journey as well. So rather than spiral in a lot of the emotions that would come up every now and again with the levels of intensity by way of violence and by way of exposure to harm and risk that was on a 24-hour basis, rather than allow myself to spiral in my sense of helplessness over the situation, this is how I took control. This is how I reframed and how I gave myself what I feel are the tools to succeed. So hopefully these are helpful to you. They are things that you can leverage in your personal and in your professional life, and if ever you face a crisis, they'll be useful for that too. So again, no updates, but hopefully this is some food for thought that you can bring to the next time you feel helpless. But hopefully these are tidbits of wisdom that you can carry with you, so that the next time you feel helpless, you can feel a little bit more equipped to manage those feelings. So thank you again for tuning in. That was it, but definitely not all. And I look forward to chatting with all of you very soon. We'll talk to you later.